I had just been reborn as the brainless villain in some generic paperback thriller when the Ice Queen heiress, my fiancée, showed up at my door. She held out a prenuptial dissolution agreement, her face a mask of contempt. Sign it, then we have nothing to do with each other. I grabbed a pen and scrawled my name with a flourish. Anything else? If not, don't let the door hit you on your way out. I'm trying to sleep. She just stared at me, completely stunned. Cole Vance. Sign it. A voice as cold as a morgue slab dragged me from the fog. I opened my eyes. A woman stood over me. She wore a black pantsuit tailored so sharply it could cut glass, setting off skin as pale as fresh snow. Her features were so exquisite they looked like they'd been rendered by an AI artist, but her eyes held the unforgiving chill of an Arctic front. Her name was Ava Sterling, my fiancée, and in the story I was now trapped in, the woman who would enjoy ruining me the most. That's right, I died and woken up in a novel. Specifically, I'd woken up as the token idiot rival, a trust fund brat with my exact same name whose only purpose was to party, make stupid decisions, and get crushed by the hero to show how awesome the hero was. And the woman in front of me, Ava Sterling, was the brilliant, ice-cold CEO with a genius-level IQ who, by some cruel twist of fate, was stuck in an arranged engagement with me. According to the original plot, she would publicly break our engagement. I would fly into a rage, try a series of pathetic revenge schemes, and end up bankrupt and broken while the novel's real protagonist kicked my corpse into the gutter. I glanced down at the document she'd tossed on the table. Agreement to terminate engagement. Showtime. When I didn't immediately move, the impatience in her brow deepened. What? Are you going to make a scene? Her voice was dripping with undisguised disgust. A useless parasite like you, who's nothing without his family name, is not worthy of me. I got it. I really did. In my last life, I'd worked the 9-to-9, 6 days a week corporate grind until I literally dropped dead at my desk. I was so tired. Make a scene. I just want to make a nap. Under Ava's dumbfounded gaze, I picked up the Mont Blanc on the table. I didn't even bother to read the fine print before signing Cole Vance on the dotted line. The signature was a messy, confident scrawl. Done. I pushed the papers back across the table. There you go. I let out a huge yawn and rubbed my eyes. Anything else? If not, I'm going back to bed. Ava was completely frozen. I could see the entire speech she'd prepared, a masterfully crafted monologue of insults and humiliations, die on her lips. This wasn't in the script. In her version of events, I was supposed to scream, to beg, to make a fool of myself, promising that one day the tables would turn like some cliché villain in a B-movie. But I didn't. I just looked at her calmly, my expression practically begging her to leave. A flicker of confusion crossed her beautiful, sharp eyes before being replaced by that familiar icy glare. What game are you playing now? No game. Just tired, I said, telling the honest-to-God truth. From now on, you go your way, I'll go mine. Or, even better, I'll just stay right here. We stay out of each other's hair. It's better for everyone. Ava stared at me, searching my face for any sign of deception. She found nothing, because every word I said was true. After a long moment, she picked up the agreement and stood. See that you mean it. She turned, her heels clicking on the marble floor, and walked to the door without a backward glance. Just as she pulled it open, she couldn't resist one last shot. Your family's company is going to be run into the ground by a worthless heir like you. I was already burrowing back into the king-sized bed, pulling the duvet over my head. My voice came out muffled. Oh, that'd be great. If it goes bankrupt, I can finally go panhandle under a freeway overpass. At least I wouldn't have to go to the office. The door slammed shut with a deafening bang. Finally, peace and quiet. I sighed in contentment. To hell with the hero. To hell with revenge plots. I just wanted to be a happy, retired at 30 couch potato. Life is short, party hard. The wisdom of the ages. I was too busy climbing the corporate ladder in my last life to get it. This time I was enlightened. The next day, I woke up whenever I felt like it. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows. I squinted, feeling every bone in my body loosen and relax. This was the life. The phone on the nightstand buzzed. It was my chief assistant, Wallace. Mr. Vance, will you be coming into the office today? The partnership proposal with Apex Industries needs your final signature. I frowned. The office? Not a chance. Wallace, I said, clearing my throat. From now on, you handle things at the company. Don't call me unless the building is literally on fire. The silence on the other end of the line lasted a full 10 seconds. I could practically picture Wallace's face. A perfect circle of shock and disbelief. And Mr. Vance, are you testing me? He stammered. A test? I was just terminally lazy. You could see it that way. I said, rolling with it. Oh, by the way, did HR just hire an intern named Ethan Cross? Fire him. What? Wallace was even more confused. Sir, I reviewed his file. The kid has a ton of potential. I cut him off. It's my company. I fire who I want when I want. Do I need a reason? Ethan Cross, the protagonist of a novel. Your standard ex-special forces secret badass type who was supposed to join my company as the first step on his meteoric rise. He was destined to use my resources, charm my contacts, and eventually swallow my family's entire corporation whole. I had zero interest in playing the clueless chump in his little underdog story. He could go be a hero at some other company, just not on my turf. Yes, sir. Right away, sir. Wallace didn't dare ask another question. I hung up, stretched, and rolled out of bed. Step 1, break engagement. Check. Step 2, fire the hero. Check. Next up, enjoy my new life of doing absolutely nothing. I changed into some comfortable sweats and headed straight for my home gym. A six-pack and chiseled abs were non-negotiable this time around. The burn of a good workout felt a hell of a lot better than staring at quarterly reports. Meanwhile, in the penthouse office of Vance Holdings, Wallace hung up the phone, his dress shirt already soaked with cold sweat. He looked at the Apex proposal in his hand, then remembered Cole's cryptic words. You could see it that way. It hit him like a bolt of lightning. A test. This was the ultimate test of his loyalty and competence. Mr. Vance was pretending to step back, to seem lazy and checked out, but he was really watching to see how high Wallace could steer the ship on his own. And firing that intern, Ethan Cross? A stroke of genius. Wallace immediately pulled up Ethan's complete file. The more he read, the more his blood ran cold. An ordinary background, yet he was hired over more qualified candidates. A resume so perfect it looked fake. This guy was obviously a corporate spy sent by a competitor. Mr. Vance must have seen through it all from the beginning and was using this offhand command as a subtle warning. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Wallace, his face flushed with adrenaline, immediately called an emergency meeting with all the senior executives. Listen up. From this moment on, we are on high alert. Mr. Vance has entrusted the company's entire operation to us. This is a sign of his immense trust, but it is also a trial by fire. If anyone messes this up, you'll answer to me. The entire executive floor of Vance Holdings lit up as if they'd been tasered. They all believed a brutal, high-stakes game for the company's future had just begun. And the mastermind behind it all, me, was in his kitchen, debating whether to have the chef make a dry-aged tomahawk steak or the 7-course tasting menu for lunch. The core of a lazy life is pleasing yourself. And for that, good food is essential. I wasn't really satisfied with my private chef's cooking. It lacked a certain soul. I'd heard about a little private kitchen in the West Village, a place called the Meadow Lark. The owner and chef made these artisanal French pastries that even my perpetually unimpressed father had raved about. I decided to go check it out for myself. The Meadow Lark was tucked away on a quiet, tree-lined street. It had a classic brownstone facade with a few bamboo planters by the door, giving it a touch of serene elegance. I pushed the door open and was greeted by the faint, sweet scent of lavender. A small, cozy courtyard was decorated in a warm, chic style. A young woman in a simple linen dress was sitting at a stone table, her head bowed in concentration as she meticulously carved a piece of melon into the shape of a flower. Sunlight filtered through the ivy-covered trellis above, casting a soft halo around her. She heard the door and looked up. Our eyes met. I'll admit it, my heart did a little stutter step. The woman was stunning, with bright eyes and a gentle, tranquil aura, like a line from a half-forgotten poem. This was Clara Meadows, the owner. Hello, do you have a reservation? Her voice was as soft and warm as a freshly baked pastry. No, first time. Just wanted to see what all the fuss was about. I pulled out the chair opposite her and sat down. She gave a small smile, set down her melon carving, and poured me a cup of tea. We don't have a menu here. Tell me what you're in the mood for, and if I know how to make it, I will. Then just make me whatever you do best. I couldn't be bothered to think. She nodded and disappeared into the kitchen. A few minutes later, a man stumbled in, reeking of booze and flanked by two guys who looked like they moonlighted as refrigerators. Clara, get out here. Stop playing hard to get. I'm booking out your whole restaurant today. The man slurred, his voice so loud it startled the birds in the courtyard. Clara emerged from the kitchen carrying a plate of exquisite little cakes. Seeing the man, she frowned slightly. Mr. Thorne, this is a small business. I don't do private buyouts. Cut the crap. Thorne shoved the table in front of her, sending teacups and plates shattering across the stone floor. I'm doing you a favor by taking an interest in this dump. Don't be ungrateful. My brow furrowed. Flies. You find them everywhere. I wasn't planning on getting involved, but seeing that plate of what looked like perfect honey lavender cake smashed on the ground really pissed me off. That was supposed to be my lunch. What's all the noise? I said, my voice heavy with annoyance. You're ruining my appetite. Thorne finally seemed to notice me. He looked me up and down, taking in my simple sweats, and sneered. Who the hell are you? Get lost before you get hurt. I ignored him, pulled out my phone, and dialed a number. Hey, Wallace. There's a company, Thorne Construction, based downtown. I don't like its owner. Make him disappear. Wallace paused for a second on the other end. Then his voice became electric with excitement. Understood, Mr. Vance. Mission accepted. I hung up and raised an eyebrow at Thorne. You have 3 minutes to get out of my sight. Thorne looked at me like I'd just told the funniest joke in the world. He pointed a fat finger at me and roared with laughter. Ha ha, who the hell do you think you are? You think one phone call is going to make me? His laughter died in his throat. His phone was ringing. He answered it. The expression on his face morphed from arrogance to confusion, then to horror, and finally to the color of ash. Dad, what? The credit line was pulled? All our partners are backing out? How could? He dropped to his knees with a thud, his phone shattering on the ground. I checked my watch. 2 minutes, 50 seconds. Not bad. I stood up, walked over to Clara, and looked down at the mess on the floor with a sigh. My honey lavender cake is ruined. Clara was still in a state of shock. She stared at me, then at the shell-shocked man on the ground, her pretty eyes wide with disbelief. Oh, who are you? Clara looked at me, her voice trembling slightly. I picked up a relatively intact piece of cake from the ground, blew on it, and popped it in my mouth. Sweet, but not cloying. It melted on the tongue. The hype was real. Just a guy who likes to eat? I mumbled. She clearly didn't believe me. A guy who could bankrupt a CEO with a single phone call was not just a guy. But I was too lazy to explain. The cake is delicious, I said, looking at her. But the mood's been ruined. I'll come back tomorrow. Hopefully, there won't be any more flies. With that, I turned and left. From that day on, I became a regular at the Meadowlark. I'd show up every day around lunchtime, never ordering, just waiting to see what Clara would make for me. She seemed intensely curious about me, always trying to gently probe for information. Mr. Vance, you don't have to work. Work is the most anti-human invention in the history of the world, I said, taking a sip of her homemade plum wine and closing my eyes in pleasure. My absurd philosophy made her laugh, her eyes curving into little crescent moons. So what do you do all day? Gym, eat, make wine, sleep? I took her on a tour of my wine cellar, which was less a cellar and more a professional microdistillery, filled with bottles of whiskey, brandies, and fruit liqueurs I'd made myself. She looked at the rows of clay jugs and oak barrels, each labeled with a year and a name, her eyes sparkling. You seem to know how to do everything. You gotta learn a few things if you want to live comfortably. She seemed to agree with me and started sharing things about her own life. She told me she'd loved being in the kitchen since she was a little girl, that she loved the magic of turning simple ingredients into something delicious. She told me her parents were happily married, that she was a total homebody, and that she'd opened a restaurant just to be closer to her family. We got along incredibly well. One day, she brought out a plate of freshly baked peach tarts, her cheeks flushed. Can I touch your abs? She asked in a tiny voice, her face turning an even deeper shade of red. I blinked, then burst out laughing. This girl was too damn cute. I lifted the hem of my t-shirt. Knock yourself out. She reached out a finger, poked one of my chiseled abdominal muscles as if it were a bomb, and then snatch her hand back like she'd been zapped. The soft, warm touch of her fingertips sent an unexpected jolt straight through me. I quickly pulled my shirt down, clearing my throat to cover my embarrassment. Ahem. So the verdict? It's hard, she whispered, looking down at the table. The atmosphere in the little courtyard suddenly became charged with something new. I realized I was starting to like coming here more and more, not just for the food, but for the girl whose smile was sweeter than any dessert she could ever make. She was like a ray of sunlight that had unexpectedly broken through the quiet, gray haze of my lazy existence, and she was warm and wonderful. While my life was all sunshine and pastries, someone else's was verging on a nervous breakdown. That someone was my ex-fiancée, Ava Sterling. Ever since I'd nonchalantly signed her agreement, she'd been convinced I was plotting some kind of massive revenge. She had people tracking my movements. The reports she got back were, Mr. Vance went to the gym this morning, then to a private kitchen in the West Village for the afternoon. In the evening, he went home and went to sleep. Mr. Vance went to the stables this morning, then to that same restaurant in the West Village. In the evening, he went home and went to sleep. Mr. Vance stayed home and distilled gin this morning, then went to the restaurant in the West Village. In the evening, he went home and went to sleep. Ava listened to her assistant's daily reports, her elegant eyebrows knitted in a knot of confusion. Is that really all he does? Nothing. That's it, Ms. Sterling. And also, the assistant's expression was strange. Also, Vance Holdings' stock has been steadily climbing. Ava's face went rigid. What did you say? Her assistant handed her tablet. On the screen, the stock chart for Vance Holdings was a beautiful, soaring red line, shooting upwards like a rocket. Below, it was a trending news headline. Vance Holdings Sion Coal Vance pioneers hands-off management style. Market confidence soars to unprecedented heights. The article was full of financial analysts pontificating about how my delegation and detached oversight was actually the most brilliant management philosophy, a sign of absolute confidence in my team. Someone had even started a viral hashtag, Does Coal Even Get Up, which had somehow racked up over 100 million impressions. The comments were a sea of memes. Every day Cole Vance sleeps in, my portfolio goes up. What kind of dark magic is this? For the love of God, don't wake him up. Let the man sleep. My 401k depends on it. This is the ultimate power move. He's so in control of the world that he can just nap all day. Ava stared at the absurd comments, a vein throbbing in her temple. What was any of this? A good-for-nothing degenerate was suddenly being hailed as a business prodigy. For being lazy. Had the entire world gone insane? She didn't believe it. She was certain there was a massive conspiracy hiding beneath the surface. Cole Vance, what are you planning? For the first time in her life, she began to doubt her own judgment. The man she had looked down on since childhood had, when she wasn't looking, transformed into an enigma she couldn't begin to solve. And this feeling of not being in control was driving her crazy. Ava's frustration soon escalated to pure rage. The cause was a parcel of land on the west side. Both Sterling Corp and Vance Holdings wanted it for a new flagship commercial development. Ava had been preparing her bid for months. She was determined to win. One day, Wallace called me again. Mr. Vance, Sterling Corp just raised their bid by 20%. Should we counter? I was in the middle of helping Clara research a historical recipe for a dessert called snow cream, my hands covered in milk and powdered sugar. I wedged the phone between my shoulder and my ear. What land? Oh, the West Side plot, I said vaguely. I sort of remembered it. In the novel, this was the deal that cemented Ava's reputation as a titan of industry. My character, the fool, had made an embarrassing scene at the auction and became a laughingstock. But I couldn't care less about the land now. Nah, let her have it. I licked some sugar off my finger. It was pretty good. I can't be bothered to fight her for it. Wallace went silent on the other end again. I expected him to argue, but instead he spoke with a tone of near-religious reverence. Mr. Vance, I understand. This feint, a bait and switch of the highest order. It's brilliant. I was like, what the hell are you talking about? Don't you worry, sir. I know exactly what to do. He hung up, practically vibrating with excitement. I stared at my phone, completely baffled. Was Wallace under too much stress? Was his brain finally melting? I didn't give it another thought and went back to my dessert research with Clara. 2 days later, Ava Sterling successfully acquired the West Side property for 30% over her initial budget. At the celebration party, everyone congratulated her on putting Vance Holdings in its place. Ava held her champagne flute, her expression neutral, but a hint of triumph glittered in her eyes. Beating Cole Vance, even this new, bizarre version of him, gave her a satisfying sense of vindication. Just then, her assistant burst into the room, his face pale as a ghost. "Ms. Sterling, bad news. The city just released its new zoning plans for the land we just bought. They're building a massive waste incineration plant right next to it." Clang! The champagne flute slipped from Ava's hand and shattered on the floor. The entire room went silent. Everyone knew what that meant. She had paid a fortune for a piece of land next to a giant garbage dump. Sterling Corp was going to lose a catastrophic amount of money. At that exact moment, a news alert broke. Vance Holdings had acquired the nearly bankrupt Apex Industries at a rock-bottom price, securing their most valuable asset, exclusive operating rights to the city's primary shipping port. A port which just happened to be the centerpiece of the governor's newly announced free trade zone. Vance Holdings' stock doubled overnight. Wallace stood at the press conference, looking like a conquering hero. When a reporter asked him about their strategy, he just smiled mysteriously. Everything is proceeding according to Mr. Vance's master plan. The West Side property was nothing more than a smokescreen. Our true target was always something much bigger. Ava, standing alone in her empty victory party next to a metaphorical garbage fire, watched this on a nearby screen and nearly coughed up blood. She finally understood Wallace's bait and switch comment. Cole Vance. He had played her. He knew about the city's plans for the West Side property from the very beginning. He deliberately feigned weakness, letting her win the bidding war at an inflated price, just to drain her capital so he could sweep in and acquire Apex. The man, his strategic mind, was terrifyingly deep. A profound chill ran down Ava's spine. She realized she had never, ever truly known Cole Vance. There was a charity gala. I had no intention of going, but my dad called and threatened to freeze my credit cards. For the sake of my life of leisure, I grudgingly agreed to make an appearance. I asked Clara to come with me. She wore a simple, pale blue gown, her hair swept up to reveal the elegant line of her neck. She was so refreshingly beautiful that she turned heads the moment we walked in. We had just found a quiet corner when a cold presence descended upon us. Ava Sterling. She was in a fiery red dress tonight, aggressively beautiful, but her face was colder than a glacier. "Cole, what is it that you really want?" she asked, her voice tight with suppressed anger. I was busy shelling a lobster claw for Clara and didn't look up. "Want about what? Don't play dumb." Ava's voice rose slightly. "The West Side property. You knew about the city's plans, didn't you?" "Oh, that." I dipped the piece of lobster meat in melted butter and held it out to Clara's lips. "Open up." Clara blushed, but obediently opened her mouth and ate it. Only then did I look up at Ava, my face a picture of innocence. Knew what? I just had a bad feeling about the place. Bad feng shui, or something. Didn't want to buy it. Ava looked like she was about to have an aneurysm. Bad feng shui. Who would believe such a ridiculous lie? She opened her mouth to say more, but I cut her off with an impatient wave of my hand. "Ms. Sterling, I'm very busy right now. I don't have time to talk shop." I then picked up a piece of tiramisu, scooped a small bite with a spoon, and fed it to Clara. "This is good. You should try it." Clara smiled sweetly. It is." The two of us continued our little world of two, completely ignoring Ava, making her look like a third wheel at her own execution. The surrounding guests were stunned. Everyone knew Ava Sterling was the untouchable Ice Queen, the center of attention wherever she went. And now, Cole Vance was publicly snubbing her for some unknown woman who had come out of nowhere. The blatant double standard was staggering. Ava's face went from white to red and back again. She had never been so humiliated in her entire life. Being ignored was infinitely worse than being insulted. She stared at me, then at the smiling Clara by my side, her expression a complex storm of emotions. Once upon a time, that spot next to me had belonged to her, but she had always considered it beneath her to stand there. She had always thought I was unworthy of her. But now someone else stood there, a seemingly ordinary woman, yet one he treated with such unabashed tenderness. An emotion she had never felt before, something called jealousy, began to take root in her heart for the very first time. "Cole, you're going to regret this." She threw the weak, pathetic line at me and turned, practically fleeing the scene. I watched her go and shrugged. Regret? My only regret was that this lobster wasn't big enough for Clara to have all to herself. After the gala, Clara and I were heading home. As we reached the parking garage, a group of greasy-looking thugs suddenly surrounded us, their eyes fixed on Clara. "You Clara Meadows? Stealing business from our boss, huh? You got a death wish?" The one with bleached hair sneered, stepping forward to grab her. My eyes went cold. I moved Clara behind me. "She's with me. You have a problem with that?" The thugs obviously didn't know who I was. "Look at this pretty boy, playing the hero. Let's take care of him, too." I sighed. Why do people always have to force my hand? I just want to live a quiet life. I slipped off my tuxedo jacket and handed it to Clara. "Close your eyes and cover your ears." But she shook her head, grabbing my arm. Her gaze was steady. "I'm not scared." I smiled. "All right then, let's show you your man can do more than just eat." The next 60 seconds were not pretty. I didn't use any fancy moves, just simple, direct applications of fists and knees to faces and ribs. A minute later, the thugs were all on the ground, groaning and unable to get up. I dusted off my hands and put my jacket back on as if I'd just shooed away some flies. I took Clara's hand to leave, but she stopped, pulled a pack of wet wipes from her purse, and began to gently clean the dust from my knuckles. Her touch was light, tender. "Are you hurt?" she asked, looking up at me, her eyes filled with worry. I shook my head, a warmth spreading through my chest. "I'm fine." "Who were they? Why would they come after me?" she asked. I thought about it. Probably retaliation from that Thorn guy I'd bankrupted. No, wait. He was likely too busy drowning in debt to orchestrate this. It must have been one of her business competitors. Just some idiots who don't know who they're messing with. I took out my phone and called Wallace again. Find out who's been causing trouble for the Meadowlark recently. Once you have a name, you know what to do. "Yes, Mr. Vance." Wallace's voice was, as always, brimming with manic energy. I hung up and found Clara just watching me. "Cole," she said softly, "it seems like you can solve anything." "That's because I don't want anything to interrupt our meals," I said, pinching her cheek with a grin. She blinked. Then a beautiful smile spread across her face. She stood on her tiptoes and gave me a quick, soft kiss on the cheek. "Thank you." That kiss was sweeter than any dessert. I looked into her sparkling eyes and suddenly thought that maybe, just maybe, getting up and stretching my legs once in a while wasn't so bad if it was to protect this. After the parking garage incident, my top executives seemed to collectively level up. They decided that protecting the future misses Vance was a top priority, more critical than closing a billion-dollar deal. And so began a ridiculous internal competition to see who could be Clara's best bodyguard. Wallace, my chief assistant, moved with ruthless efficiency. He bought the brownstone next to the Meadowlark and converted it into a 24/7 community security office. At any given time, a dozen men in black suits and sunglasses could be seen casually strolling down the quiet street, scaring away the local stray cats. My head of investments, a young guy named Leo, decided physical protection wasn't enough. She needed emotional support. He somehow found Clara's social media accounts and mobilized his entire department to like, comment, and share everything she posted. "Wow, chef, those scones look amazing. So beautiful and talented. Mr. Vance is a lucky man. We support you, Clara. Wishing you all the success." Clara showed me her phone, her posts flooded with hundreds of identical, over-the-top compliments. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Are all your employees this?" "Free." I put my head in my hands. They were using all the energy they usually reserved for sucking up to me on her. But the most absurd was Kevin, my head of IT. He decided online and offline security weren't foolproof. So he hacked into the city's entire surveillance network and set up a level 1 threat alert for Clara. Anytime a suspicious individual lingered near the Meadowlark for more than 5 minutes, sirens would blare in his office. It sent the entire tech department into a panic, thinking they were under a massive cyber attack. I called all 3 of them into my office and chewed them out. "Are you people idiots? I told you to protect her, not to harass her. The three of them stood in a line, heads bowed like guilty schoolboys. Wallace mumbled, "Mr. Vance, we were just worried she'd be in danger again." Leo nodded vigorously. "Yeah, sir, we just want to be the guardians of your love story." Kevin pushed up his glasses. "Data indicates that excessive security measures provide a 99% deterrence against potential threats." I was getting a massive headache. "All of you, act normal. If I see any more of this nonsense, I'm transferring you all to our research division in Antarctica to study how penguins relax." The three of them scrambled out of my office like their lives depended on it. I rubbed my temples. This whole lying flat thing was proving to be surprisingly exhausting, thanks entirely to my overachieving staff. Ava Sterling was not having a good time. The West Side Project was a financial black hole, and she was taking heavy fire from her board directors. Meanwhile, the success of Vance Holdings was a constant, sharp thorn in her side. She began investigating me obsessively. She refused to believe a person could change so dramatically overnight. She looked into my every move for the past few months, every person I had interacted with, and she discovered a fact that made no sense to her. I had fired an intern named Ethan Cross. From her perspective, Ethan was a diamond in the rough, clean background, exceptional skills, a future star. She had even considered poaching him for Sterling Corp, but I had fired him without a second thought. She also found that the timing of my Apex acquisition was so perfect, it was as if I could see the future. And the woman by my side, Clara Meadows, came from a perfectly normal, middle-class family. There was nothing special about her background, yet I doted on her. None of it added up. It was all deeply strange. One day, as if guided by some unseen force, she drove to that quiet little street in the West Village. She didn't get out of the car. She just watched from distance. She saw me, wearing an apron, clumsily helping Clara shell peas. She saw Clara laugh and wipe a smudge of flour from my cheek, and saw me lean in and steal a kiss. She saw the two of us sitting in the courtyard, each with a steaming bowl of homemade chicken noodle soup, eating with simple, unadulterated contentment. The sun shone down on them, warm and peaceful. It was a side of me she had never seen. Relaxed, gentle, even a little goofy. Ava's hands tightened on the steering wheel. She had always thought of me as a vine, clinging to her for support, unable to survive on my own. Only now did she realize I wasn't a vine. I was a towering oak tree, and she had been the one to walk away from its shade. A strange, sharp ache pricked at her heart. She supposed this was what regret felt like. Arthur Covington, a titan of industry and one of my father's oldest friends, had been watching Vance Holdings with great interest. Today, he invited me for tea. "Cole, my boy, your recent moves have been a real eye-opener for this old man," Arthur said, taking a sip of tea and smiling at me. I waved a dismissive hand. "You're too kind, Mr. Covington. I'm just winging it." "Winging it," he chuckled. "Your winging it has run that Sterling girl ragged. That West Side feint was a beautiful piece of work." I said nothing. "Fine. Believe what you want. There was no point explaining. They wouldn't believe me anyway." "This hands-off philosophy of yours aligns perfectly with the Taoist masters," Arthur continued. "The greatest sound is silence. The greatest form has no shape. A true leader governs by appearing to do nothing. You don't make a move until it's the final, decisive one." The corner of my mouth twitched. "Mr. Covington, you have a serious misunderstanding of my character. I'm really just lazy. My firm has a new green energy project we're launching. We'd like to partner with Vance Holdings. Would you be interested?" Arthur finally got to the point. Before I could even speak, Wallace shot up from his seat beside me, trembling with excitement. Covington Industries was one of the biggest players in the country. Ava Sterling had spent months trying to get a meeting with Arthur and failed. And now, he was coming to us, offering partnership. This was a monumental opportunity. I looked at Wallace, then at Arthur's expectant face, and sighed. "Mr. Covington, you can work out the details with Wallace. I only have one condition." "Name it. Don't let it interfere with me picking up my girlfriend from work in the afternoon." The room went dead silent. Arthur stared at me for 3 full seconds, then erupted in a booming, hearty laugh. "Excellent. I love it. A man who has his priorities straight." He clapped me on the shoulder. "The project is yours. You've got more sense than your old man ever did, kid." When the news broke, the entire business world was stunned. Vance Holdings and Covington Industries announced strategic partnership in landmark deal. When Ava Sterling saw the headline in her office, the room seemed to spin. She had poured countless hours and resources into courting a man that Cole Vance had won over simply by wanting to pick up his girlfriend. How? Why? What was happening to the world? For the first time, she began to question the unwavering business principles she had built her life on. Was it possible that all her hard work and strategic maneuvering was less effective than picking your girlfriend up from work? Clara started an Instagram live stream recently, teaching people how to make simple pastries. Her gentle personality and soothing voice quickly earned her a lot of followers. During her stream one day, the comments started getting out of hand. "You're so pretty. Do you have a boyfriend? I heard you're dating Cole Vance from Vance Holdings. Is that true? No way. Why would a guy like Cole Vance be with some baker?" Yeah, she's probably just making it up for clout. Clara looked at the scrolling comments, flustered and unsure what to do. I was in the background, sneaking one of the custard tarts she just made. Seeing her distress, I walked right into the camera frame. I wiped a crumb from the corner of my mouth and grinned at the camera. Who says I wouldn't be with her? My girlfriend is the best thing that's ever happened to me. If anyone's reaching, it's me. The comments section instantly exploded. OMG, it's him. It's Cole Vance. Aha, I'm dead. This is the cutest thing I've ever seen. The man from Does Cole Even Get Up has spoken, and he said he's the one who's lucky. This is the most epic relationship confirmation of all time. I can't handle it. I ignored the digital meltdown and took the piping bag from Clara's hand. I looked straight at the camera. She's mine. If I ever see anyone say a single bad word about her online again, I promise you, the rats will chew through your internet cable by morning. Then I looked down at Clara, whose face was now the color of a ripe tomato, and gently booped her on the nose. Don't listen to them. Let's finish this cake. I ended the live stream, but the internet had already gone into a full-blown frenzy over my little cameo. Cole Vance confirms he said he's reaching internet cable warning. The hashtags shot to the top of the trending charts. My line, "She's mine," was screenshotted and shared by millions, hailed as the romantic quote of the year. And the internet cable warning became the ultimate protective boyfriend meme. No one dared to question Clara again. Everyone knew that this gentle pastry chef was the person Cole Vance cherished above all else. I looked at the still blushing Clara beside me and figured it was a good day's work, giving her a complete sense of security in the most ridiculously over-the-top way possible. Yeah, that fit my new persona perfectly. Late at night, Ava Sterling sat alone in her vast, cold office. On her computer screen was a viral clip from my appearance on Clara's live stream. In the video, the way I looked at Clara was filled with a tenderness and adoration she had never seen from me. The love was so palpable, it practically radiated from the screen. She closed the video and opened a food delivery app. On a whim, she searched for the Meadowlark. It was past closing time, but they were still taking delivery orders. She ordered a tiramisu, the same one Clara had been making in the video. Half an hour later, it arrived. She opened the box, took a small spoonful, and put it in her mouth. It was sweet. It was a kind of sweetness she had never tasted before, one that felt warm and human. She had been raised to be an heiress. Emotions were a weakness. Desserts were a threat to her image. Her world was composed of cold numbers and rational analysis. She had always believed this was the price of success. But now, looking out at the millions of lights of the city below, the sweet cake melting on her tongue, a tear slid down her cheek without warning. She suddenly couldn't understand. She had won so many battles, earned the fear and respect of so many people. So why wasn't she happy? Why did she envy the man she had once despised and the woman she had once dismissed as ordinary? Had she lost? It felt like she had. Like she had thrown away the most important thing in her life with her own two hands. The original novel's hero, Ethan Cross, went to work for Ava Sterling after I fired him. Ava, probably hoping to use him against me, gave him a senior position. Ethan didn't disappoint. He quickly made a name for himself and devised a complex scheme to attack Vance Holdings on the stock market, a plan he called Project Cerberus. On the day of the attack, Ethan and Ava sat in her office, confidently watching the market data on their screens. "Don't worry, Ms. Sterling. Vance Holdings is going to take a massive hit today. Ethan said, his voice brimming with confidence. Ava didn't say anything. She just sipped her coffee, her eyes fixed on the line representing my company's stock. But the market crash they were expecting never came. After a brief dip, the Vance Holdings stock shot up like a rocket. Instead, it was their own company's stock that went into a free fall. What's happening? Ethan's face went white. Where is our capital? Report. Our trading accounts have been frozen. Report. All our traders have been locked out. We've been hacked. Report. Our firewall has been breached. Our proprietary data is being leaked online. As the bad news poured in, Ethan was paralyzed. He had no idea that my IT guy, Kevin, had flagged him as a potential threat to the boss's happiness months ago and had done a deep dive into his entire life. To Kevin, Project Cerberus was about as sophisticated as a child's crayon drawing. Wallace and Leo hadn't been idle, either. They had interpreted my months-old, offhand comment. I can't be bothered to fight her for it, as the final piece of my grand strategy against Sterling Corp. They had a dozen counteroffensives prepared and waiting. Ethan's plan was a joke from the very beginning. Impossible. This is impossible. Ethan collapsed into his chair, his face ashen. Ava watched it all unfold without a hint of surprise. She had seen this coming. The Cole Vance of today was not someone who could be challenged so easily. She stood up, walked over to Ethan, and spoke in an icy voice. You're fired. Without a second glance at the genius she had once placed her hopes in, she walked out of the office. She knew that this war, her desperate attempt to win back some ground, was over. She had lost, utterly and completely. I was on a private island in the South Pacific. Sun, sand, waves, and a custom cocktail I just made for Clara. Perfection. Clara was resting her head on my lap, the sea breeze toying with her hair. Can we just live like this forever? She asked, looking up at me. Of course, I said, kissing her forehead. My only life goal is to lie here and do nothing with you. She smiled, a picture of pure happiness. My phone rang, ruining the moment. It was Wallace. Mr. Vance, we did it. We completely crushed Ethan Cross's plan, and in the chaos, we acquired a 15% stake in Sterling Corp. We're their largest outside shareholder now. Wallace's voice was so excited he was practically screaming. Oh, I said, unimpressed. Ms. Sterling, she seems to be taking it hard. I heard she's locked herself in her office all day, Wallace added. Not my problem. I hung up and put my phone on silent. Nothing in the world was more important than my wife's nap. I looked down at Clara, who had already drifted off to sleep in my arms, and gently brushed a strand of hair from her face. Thousands of miles away, in a glass skyscraper, Ava Sterling stood before her floor-to-ceiling window, looking at a paparazzi photo of the two of us on vacation that had just been leaked online. In the picture, I was grinning like an idiot, and Clara was nestled against me, the image of perfect tranquility. It was a scene she would never be a part of. She turned off her phone, leaving her alone with her solitary reflection in the dark glass. The world outside was loud and chaotic, but in her world, there was only silence. And me, under the warm Pacific sun, holding my entire world in my arms, drifted off for a peaceful afternoon nap. This was the life I wanted.